This is not meant to be a political video. The topic it's about is innately related to politics, and if you know me personally whatsoever, you will know where I stand on the political spectrum. But that is irrelevant for what we're going to be talking about today. If you're a guitar player and you've been on social media throughout the past, let's say 30 hours, you've probably seen your favorite guitar company post something relating to Donald Trump's newly imposed reciprocal tariffs. A large list of tariffs Trump tends to impose on pretty much every UN-recognized country, including uninhabited islands that have nothing but seals, penguins, and seagulls on them. And if we consult this list real quick, we can see that some of the nations that have been hit the heaviest are also the ones where most guitars that we're buying nowadays happen to come out of. 20% tariffs on the European Union, which is listed on here as a country, but let's not talk about that. 25% on South Korea, 32% on Indonesia, 34% on China, and a whopping 46% tariff on Vietnam. And this is damaging not only to guitar companies based out of the US that make import guitar models built in factories abroad, even though the company is sat in North America, but it is equally damaging to guitar companies all across the world whose sales in large parts do come from the US anyway. Let's take, for example, roof guitars from Poland right here in the EU. I'm sure you've seen them before, them and their carbon fiber composite guitars, because they've received a lot of hype lately, mainly through their attendance at trade shows in the US, like NAMM. Now, I'm not an economist, but this is common knowledge, right? The US is one of, if not the largest economy in the world. And it also happens to be the #1 market for guitars worldwide, based on both total sales and overall customer base. Over 25% of guitar sales worldwide come out of North America. And applying tariffs not individually to different industries, so 1% for automobile, 1% for apparel, and then another for stuff like timber, for example, but instead as a blanket percentage on an entire nation, is asinine and incredibly damaging to a multitude of industries, especially this one. Some people are now going to say stuff like, well, then if you're American, just buy American-made guitars. But if that's you, I'd like to ask you two questions. A, where do you think all of the electronics, wood, and raw components are coming from? Do you think pale moon ebony grows in the US? And B, just because you happen to be born on one portion of the globe and not another, does not mean that your experience in consumer goods shall forever be limited to one chunk of dirt that is arbitrarily separated by a body of water from the next chunk of dirt over. I have and have had guitars in this studio from all across the globe. I really mean that. Japan, USA, Germany, the Czech Republic, South Korea, Indonesia, China, it really doesn't matter. I've had them all. And that is a great thing. And this is even worse for small solo guitar builders, just one person hunched over their desk all day, cranking out 15, 20, or a maximum of 25 guitars a year, because they all have to be built painstakingly with blood, sweat, and tears by hand. Because even with somebody like that, who is outputting at an incredibly low rate compared to any actual guitar company, you would be surprised how many of that person's sales might be coming from the US. And even 4, 5, or 6 people a year opting out of purchasing one because they're afraid of paying 31% tariffs on a $4,000 or $5,000 guitar can put that person out of business. Other industries aren't as affected by that because if we take, for example, phones or automobiles, there aren't really any small fish there, mainly because of the barrier to market entry, because of all of the very established brands, and because you can't make a small quantity of cars in a smaller factory or something, right? That costs an insane sum of money, and unless you're a billionaire, it's really not feasible. But in the guitar industry, there are still many, many people who value an artisanally handcrafted thing over something mass-produced on a conveyor belt to save some money. And those are the people that are getting fucked the hardest. Now, if we're calling a spade here, the US doesn't really have the capacity to enforce these new tariffs. They hardly really have the capacity to enforce current ones, which is why customs is already terrible. But this is going to cause nothing but chaos. And the way I see it, it's going to result in one of two things. Either it's going to be a gamble when you're importing stuff, and either you get taxed up the ass, or just nothing happens at all, or alternatively, stuff is going to start piling up at customs, with government employees slowly grinding away at the pile while it grows continuously, delaying shipping times by knows how long. I'm not sure which of those two is preferable, but neither is ideal. With the exception of a small handful of people who will be watching this, I don't know you, and therefore I don't care where you position yourself on the political spectrum, because if you are watching this, I do know that you are likely a guitar player, and therefore this affects you one way or another. Even if you think it doesn't, because you're based in Europe like I am. For those who don't know, I'm based in Germany. You might be surprised what percentage of your favorite local guitar company's sales originates out of North America, thereby harming them because that number might decrease by quite a bit if this goes through the way that it's been proposed. There is no call to action at the end of this video, because there is no action to call to. This was just outlining the situation for you. I guess let's see where it goes. Thank you for watching.